All right, so why don't we start off, if it's all right, with just some of the history of your time in public service. Let's even go back further than these 12 years. Tell me about how you first got involved in public service.
Well, in 1980, maybe 79, I was going fishing, and a car pulled up on the north side, which is questionable, and it was Joe Caldwell, Joe Conti, Tony Fusco, and they approached me with regard to running for office and as a trustee. So I said, well, let me give it some thought. And my two kids were with me, and they said, yeah, rah rah shishkumba, you can do it. So anyway, that started my I'll call it tenure of near 40 years. And as trustee for 6, I sat right over in that chair over there. And it was a learning experience. There's no question about it. Going from knowing nothing about government and not, other than be a committee man, to learning. And I ruffled some feathers, and I don't know if people like that, but some did, and reelected me 3 times. And then I decided I wanted to run for town, and then I was going to run for councilman, which at the time Wendell Soltis wanted to run for councilman, and there was already an incumbent, Louis Williams, and so I said, well, maybe I'll run for supervisor, again, not knowing the in-depthness of it. And the big question at the time was, because I was giving up my seat, they said to me, what if you lose? And because I had a little following at the time, and I said, the bigger question is, what if I win? And so that was 10 years of being Town of Union supervisor. Then taking a little bit of time off from government, I went into Union Endicott School Board, and I was elected to that. And then I got sick and had to give that up. But then the opportunity came up, actually 4 years prior to when I got elected. I sort of implied that I wouldn't mind being mayor. Actually, as a young kid, everybody idolized Joe Caldwell. I said that I want to be like Joe Caldwell, and but Joan Pulse had somewhat of a handle on what was going on. So I bowed to her, and not with a primary of any kind. Then she stayed 1 term, and that opened the door up for me, and the rest is history, 12 years worth.
Wow. Now, given that you served as a trustee in the early 80s, you obviously had a front row seat to see how Endicott has changed over these years, and in particular, some of the challenges of running a village after IBM kind of downsized and reduced their property tax contributions to the village, et cetera. To contrast for me a little bit the differences in making a budget work and all of that from your first days here from 80 to 86 and then these last 12 years.
Well, no question, those were glory days from 80 to 86. I mean, the contributions of IBM, from things like a phone truck to, there was a time after 86 that the challenges came in, the assessment challenges, which made it difficult, and no question, being aware of the way it used to be and some of the decisions you had to make certainly were critical. I can only tell you that, the understanding that I took with me when I first took the mayor's office was, it's never going to be the way it was. It can't be. Things just, the dynamics are different. The ethnicity, the people who live in the neighborhoods are different, and you have to understand that, and you have to deal with it. And so you take a position that you're not going to bring it back, but you want to leave some critical elements that remind you of those days. You can't lose sight of that. I mean, you can't be the carousel capital of the world. I mean, ours is broke, but we're in the process of fixing it. There's no question about it. But things like that happen. Our infrastructure system gets old, and it arouses the people, maybe through water, through backflow of the treatment process. So you want to fix those. I took a real good position that, what, Endicott has been good to me since I was a young kid, and I was able to walk the streets alone. And, what can you do to remind people that that can happen with their help and with their efforts and with their contributions? So, I mean, we dealt with much of the things that would please the younger folks, because when the younger folks are happy, the older folks are happy. So, when from the parks, from Davis Field Development, Logan Field, Testa Field, Sertoma Field, we upgraded all of them. We put a band shell, for you can go on a Wednesday, Thursday night to the park, and there's music, there's kids playing baseball, softball. It's just a wonderful time to, take a walk to stroll to the park. And I was always there, and it gave a good feeling, that you did something right and you did something that's going to help remind people of the good days. Not bring them back, but remind them that this community, Endicott, is a wonderful place to live, wonderful place to raise a family, and hopefully that there's a lot of spin-offs to that. We've spent countless hours developing, trying to deal with the economics of the area. Everybody knows that's a little down. We're not going to wave a wand to change that, but we're going to help. Make people try to visit, try to make part of their day, if not just a walk, a shopping, convenience. So, I mean, that's probably been the biggest challenge. Now, we recently got a grant for $300-some thousand that is going to help on the infrastructure, the facades, the alleyways, that you try to develop, even with the alleyways, a way down and a way back. Instead of going down the avenue and back the same way, maybe redevelop the alleyway concept as part of the walk. So, I mean, and we were recipients, I'll call it recipients, of some things that happened, like floods, that we gained, like the BAE at the Huron campus. We hate to have something like that happen, but we were ready, willing, and able to help them make a move to Endicott. So that's worked out well. We've worked with them continuously, if not them, the Huron conglomerate. And I think you can talk to anybody, and they're going to say, that the last 12 years has been, full of energy to try to make businesses better, try to make people feel more comfortable, try to make, the kids. One of the saddest things that's come about is this young man named Nick Kelly come up to me and said, "I heard you're not going to be the mayor anymore." I said, "No." He said, "Well, who's going to be the mayor?" I said, "I'll always be your mayor." And 12 years that means every kid all the way through the senior in high school, the only mayor they've known has been me. And and that's a sad part, but that's a good part, because I know that there's a bunch of people out there, be young, be it old, that call me mayor and said, "I'll always call you mayor." So that makes you feel good. And 12 years is a long time, and I got some aches and pains like everybody else, that sticks around any job, 12 years. But it's been a good, I'll call it a marriage of, some wonderful people I've worked with. And I've enjoyed it. It's been fun. It's been hectic. It's been, I'll call it trying. You can't please everybody, but I've tried to return most calls if I could. And I tried to answer them. I tried to help people, and that's another good thing that's happened, that you're able to facilitate somebody who has a little problem. And again, we had some wonderful people on committees. The committee system worked for the most part.
How important is it that you have such long-standing roots within this community that, people, do you think that would make people feel more comfortable approaching you with their problems? And did it put you in a better position in some cases to find solutions because, you have so many connections and so much knowledge?
Well, no question that, living here for the number of years I have, all my life, being everything from a paper boy to some of the parents of some of the people to, being a Union Endicott graduate, going through the 12 years of schooling in kindergarten, even though a lot of people have moved or followed their children to some other place in the country, they know I'm staying. They know I'm going to be here. And I can't tell you the number of times that my secretary, Barb Mazarek, would say, oh, you have to call this person back because they're really angry. And I would call them back, and, and it was, well, hello, Mayor, and my secretary just couldn't understand how they were somewhat, she thought mean or,
Right.
dispirited, but, and I think people recognize that, oh, it's the mayor, and maybe 12 years gives you that, maybe 11, maybe 10, maybe 9, but they know who I am. On the other side of the phone line, they know who I am. And they know if they go to Price Chopper, they might see me, or if they go on the Avenue, they might see me. I mean, I went on the Avenue almost every day, and I'd pick up some things that needed to be picked up. And I always try to leave a place better than I found it. And 12 years ago, I found it, certain things, certain ways. And 12 years later, I think they're better for it, and there's so many things not only have we done, but are in the works. The new water line, we've worked with Vestal to make sure we have enough water in case something happens, and in the parks, forget it. I mean, we just have, put play gyms in Mercer Road, put play gyms up north side. There's going to be another new one up there. In a summer day, you can go there and there's hundreds of people, either playing ball or enjoying the park. Hopefully we can get that carousel, structured. I had a meeting today, as a matter of fact, that the company from Ohio is going to be coming in and, doing what they have to do to get it going. We got a grant for that, and grants aren't free money. You have to get the work done, and then you get reimbursed for the most part. There's so much mental work. There's so much trying work, to get one. I mean, we've tried for the DRI 3 times in a row and got rejected. But this recent grant, the Main Street grant, was part of that. And hopefully it's going to be utilized for what we planned it for. So, I'm real proud of what's taken place over the last 12 years. I'm real proud of the community that exists. Again, without reinventing the wheel, bringing it back to the EJ days, that's not going to happen. the IBM days, that's not gonna happen. But you try to maintain that tie, that important past history. You know, you don't forget, if you lived here all your life, you don't forget what it was like. And I didn't, and I don't. And I'll be around. I'm not going nowhere. I might cut myself and bleed orange and black, or I'll cut myself and bleed Endicott, because I should have maybe a tattoo across my head. But that's how much I love it, you know, and that's how much I appreciate not only the community, but the people who live here.
Do you think everyone has a sufficient appreciation for the level of services offered by such a small village? When I think about compared to the population size, and again, let's face it, a lot of this was funded by IBM's largesse in the past, but the fact that you have a paid fire, a paid police, a municipal electric system, the series of parks and what have you, and just even the fact that the bones of the original planned community that Endicott and Johnson laid out on a map of what was farm field, put a high school on one end and the factories on the other, and designed this retail avenue. You think, I mean, I'm not sure every village of this size has all that.
No. And, you know, you often have to scratch your head to think about, you know, we're only 3.5 square miles. And I think when you take into account the need for safety, the need for medical services, you know, and even we've had some situations where the board didn't agree, or I didn't agree with the board, with regard to the need for something like the Ideal Hospital facility, which used to be an Endicott facility. You know, the need for people to feel welcome, that their relatives are going to be close and not shipped out. You know, and it sort of arouses some people. Why are you giving them such a break? Because they deserve it. You know, I mean, they were, a lot of 80% of those people in Ideal are former residents, and you know, those people deserve a break. You know, and you know, I often think, you know, can we maintain this? There's no question that question comes up. You know, we have a cost factor with regard to what it costs to provide a police force and a fire department, as well as, you know, public works, you know. But again, you try to do what you have to do to make sure that still exists, because that's part of the lore. You know, the Endicott Johnson used to provide the fire and police protection, and you know, the transition to the village, you know, became one of those legacies, and you try to maintain it. Maybe not to the point it is now, and believe me, I mean, we've had disagreements with the unions, and you know, I understand that the need for more is always part of the equation. You know, maybe on the government end and the taxpayer end, the need for, well, we can't provide more, you know, question comes up. So I like to think that with cooperation on both sides, it can happen. It can't keep increasing, I know that. It just can't, you know. And that's where the factor of trying to develop a safer community brings people who are thinking safer, you know, comes in. You know, some people can argue with that, you know, but you have no control of that. You know, sometimes, you know, when you provide a safe community, it doesn't swarm people who are just, you know, in that line of thinking. So, you know, you have the need for those departments to go out also and be community ambassadors, and hopefully that works.
Yeah. Do you think the village can survive? I know there's been talk by various people over the years of dissolving both villages into the town.
In all honesty, if you did, it would work. it would, and there's going to be some things that you would have to slowly transition out of, and, but I believe it would work. I mean, it's sort of like West Corners, Endicott, you need in initial stages, special districts to provide, for that transition period. We tried with the police. We tried to connect with the fire, with Johnson City. And at the time, you get stumbling blocks of old line of thinking. There's, let's say the fire went from Endicott and we tried to transition with Johnson City, but there's Enwell in between. And they have their own fire department, and you'd have to get an agreement between the Enwell people to assume some of the responsibilities of the Endicott Fire Department, which, you probably could make a case, well, that's not going to happen. We tried to go with the Broome County Sheriff with regard to the police department, and there was no loss of jobs. There was no, there was loss of some high-level positions, but, that would work. It would work. I'm not trying to make a case for it now that I'm leaving, but we did try it. And, you get some people at the meetings that maybe were set up. I don't really know. But it wasn't anything personal with regard to any office or officials. It was just something you have to explore and you have to keep in the back of your mind. It's like keeping in the back of your mind that you want to make this a wonderful community, as much as sometimes it looks different. And it's not just Endicott, it's Broome County. Right. There's factors out there that they didn't have, like drug crisis, more family disputes, that within the family itself. And, you have to keep an eye on those and not try to jump to any hoops or conclusions that you can fix them in a day or a week or a month or a year or several years. But there has to be long-range plans, and ours was to make the community a better place to live, again, certainly not making everybody happy, but making some people think they can do it better, and have them run for office, and they'll find out it's not an easy thing.
Do you think there's still a lot of pride amongst people who live in Endicott? Is there still a community spirit here?
I like to think so. I go to most everything I can, if not to enjoy it, but to show that the mayor finds it important that he participates or is a part of it. And, I'm one person. We've set up some festivals. We work with the church festivals. We have our Gusto, which brings, 1,000 people to Endicott. So, and when you talk to them, they're happy that things like this still exist. And, you like to say, well, they're happy for one day. Then you start working on a week, and then you start working on a month, and pretty soon you have, again, I like to think that working on our school-age kids is important, because they're the ones you want to make sure they're happy. If they're not happy, there's a problem. And, and that might be by way of ball fields. It might be, again, the school can play an important role in that. Again, I'm not part of that, but I know the new superintendent is on the right track. I've had conversations with her, so I'm happy with that. Is there pride? Yeah, there's pride, but you can't just use the word pride. You have to be a part of it, and you have to, not think that it's anybody's fault that something happens. It's part of society that we're dealing with, and you have to deal with it. And maybe I know the avenue always comes up, but there's a couple dynamos down there that are really committing themselves. Zach Pedley, the EPAC, Jeff Plarchik and Dana, Face Becker. There's some wonderful people there that and can really revive, and with the Main Street grant, hopefully that develops a sense of belonging, and bringing people back, and we have an application in the Union District. Hopefully that comes through fruition and helps that district also. So, I mean, we're on top of most everything. We dealt with water, we dealt with wastewater, we dealt with, a flood with our public works, everything is got some sentences to it that, have already been started and hopefully help along the way. I'm not going to take credit for it, but I'm going to be here, and if it's not something that I think was intended for with the money or with the grant or with, what's best for Endicott. I mean, I know that I'm born and bred here like an ear of corn, but I like to think I have a good handle on the future, the past, and the present.
Do you have a favorite memory of these 12 years of your time, or something you're most proud of?
I was out there so much that I had a few, like Little League, that I was a part of with my grandson, and things like that. They aren't the nuts and bolts of a village, but they're the importance of the village, and the people that see you. I'm a people person, and I like to think that even though everybody doesn't say hi to me, I say hi to them. And, to me, that's the job of the mayor, to be a public relations guy, and being involved in grant processes, because any meeting or conversation is good, with other people and community members. And being able to extract people who take that same approach to the village and working with them and listening to them and sometimes disagreeing with them is just as important, as being the community ambassador. And I like to think that that was my strong point, and not with everybody, but with a lot of them, and I'm happy for that.